Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The U.S. is working to maintain a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, which is heading into a complicated second phase. Both President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio are meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister today. Another military strike against Venezuelan drug traffickers. The first time the U.S. military has struck a land target in Venezuela. A viral video, a massive fraud investigation, and now a warning from the FBI. Federal officials say they've already indicted dozens in Minnesota, but the FBI director says what they've uncovered so far could be just the tip of the iceberg. A $50 billion fund for rural health care. The White House provides an update on what the money aims to do and how much each state will get. China's military launches live fire drills around Taiwan, calling the operation a stern warning. Tensions are rising as Taiwan places its own forces on alert. A South Korean e-commerce company will be paying its users for a massive data breach. Coupang has announced more than $1 billion in compensation.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. The shocking scope of alleged fraud in Minnesota continues to come to light. Independent journalist Nick Shirley published an over 40-minute investigative video of daycare and healthcare centers in the state. The video has crossed 100 million views on X. Here's part of the video and reactions from Shirley on Fox News.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
We were able to crack over $110 million in fraud in one day. And that's just the tip. When people say it's the tip of the iceberg, it really is, because there's billions of fraud inside the state of Minnesota right now. Oh, it's so obvious. If you're living in Minnesota, you have to raise your eyebrows and think, what's going on? Literally, if you drive around Minnesota, around Minneapolis, you will see daycare centers, autism centers. You will then see transportation companies that have snow piled up as if they haven't moved in months. And then you also go into buildings where there'll be 20 healthcare companies, 14.
In the video, Shirley visits multiple daycare centers where no kids are in sight. Some have blacked out windows and no visible playgrounds. The centers allegedly received millions of dollars in government funding. A spokesperson for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says the governor has strengthened oversight, including launching investigations into these specific facilities, one of which was already closed. FBI Director Kash Patel commented on Shirley's videos focusing on alleged fraud in Minnesota. Patel says the FBI surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota before the video was shared. Here's more.
Patel says the aim is to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. Federal officials have so far indicted 78 people and convicted 57 individuals in a $250 million fraud scheme in Minnesota. Charges included wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and more. Patel says the FBI believes the cases uncovered so far are just the tip of a very large iceberg. He says the FBI will continue to follow the money and protect the children. The FBI director says many are also being referred to immigration officials for possible deportation proceedings where eligible. Meanwhile, Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has also come under scrutiny. Her net worth rose sharply to about $30 million, which is an increase of roughly 35-fold from the year before, and the wealth is largely attributed to assets connected to her husband's firm, Rose Lake Capital.
The One Big Beautiful bill allocates $50 billion to fund healthcare in rural America. The White House today provides an update on what this money will do. Here's more.
Dr. Mehmet Oz, administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, says the fund will be distributed over 5 years. His agency will be getting $10 billion every fiscal year, and the first year's fund is already given out. Each state will get between $147 million and $281 million in 2026. The fund aims to address structural issues with rural healthcare, such as lower life expectancy. Dr. Oz says the purpose of the fund is not to pay operating expenses, but rather to incentivize innovation. He says, for example, Alaska is exploring drone delivery of prescription drugs, and Alabama is experimenting with robotics during ultrasounds on pregnant women.
A man charged with planting two pipe bombs in Washington, D.C. the night before the January 6th Capitol breach has confessed. That's according to court papers released yesterday. Brian J. Cole Jr. told authorities he felt obligated to, quote, speak up after he started to suspect the 2020 election had been tampered with. Cole was arrested this month. According to the government's court filing, he initially denied placing the bombs outside the Republican and Democratic Party headquarters ahead of the U.S. Capitol breach. But then investigators showed him a surveillance image of what they said was him in a hooded sweatshirt carrying a backpack en route to the bomber that took place. After that, according to the filing, he confessed. Another military strike against Venezuelan drug traffickers. President Trump says the U.S. took out a major facility in the South American country. Here he is speaking to WABC Radio on Friday.
We just knocked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant, a big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard. But drugs are down over 97%. Can you believe it?
The president didn't provide details about the strike. The Trump administration has been targeting drug boats in international waters in recent months. But this would mark the first time the U.S. military has struck a land target in Venezuela. Trump added during the interview that the Venezuelan regime took U.S. oil and sent millions of people from their jails to America. The president recently announced a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers to and from Venezuela and also did not rule out a war with the country. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said today that the U.S. is offering a 15-year security guarantee as part of a proposed peace plan. Though Zelensky said he would prefer a U.S. commitment of up to 50 years to deter Russia from further attempts to seize land by force. On the Russian side, the Kremlin said today that Ukraine should withdraw its troops from the part of Donbass that it still controls if it wants peace. A spokesman said another call between President Trump and Russia's President Putin will happen soon. Zelensky met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. Trump said the talks were getting very close to a deal to end the war in Ukraine.
The two leaders met at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on Sunday, reporting progress on security guarantees for Ukraine and territorial issues.
Mr. President, have you agreed on the so-called free trade zone on Donbass? How to separate the sites? How to make the separation line? Who will be responsible?
The word agreed is too strong. I would say not agreed, but we're getting closer to an agreement on that, and that's a big issue. Certainly, that's one of the big issues. And
Zelensky said an agreement on security guarantees for Ukraine has been reached, while Trump said they're about 95% there, with European nations expected to play a major role. French President Emmanuel Macron announced a meeting in Paris for early January to finalize those contributions. Trump also spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin before meeting Zelensky, calling the 2-hour conversation productive. And he said he plans to call him again.
President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices. So a lot of good things came out of that call today.
The Kremlin has expressed support for Trump's negotiations. Negotiators are also working on shared control of the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which Trump says could restart soon under a local ceasefire. Despite weekend missile strikes on Kiev, Trump insists both sides are serious about peace. Zelensky said any peace agreement would have to be approved by Ukraine's parliament or by a referendum. And Trump said he would be willing to speak to lawmakers if that would secure the deal.
The State Department said today the U.S. has made a $2 billion pledge for UN humanitarian aid. The U.S. reduced its aid spending this year, as did Western donors such as Germany, pivoting to increased defense spending. The State Department said the UN needs to consolidate humanitarian functions to reduce bureaucratic overhead, unnecessary duplication, and what it called ideological creep. It said individual UN agencies will need to adapt, shrink, or die. Total U.S. humanitarian contributions to the UN fell to almost $3.5 billion in 2025, equating to almost 15% of the global sum. This was down sharply from around $14 billion the prior year, and a peak of about $17 billion in 2022. The United Nations launched a 2026 aid appeal for $23 billion earlier this month. That's after half the $47 billion sought for 2025, reflecting falling donor support. To discuss President Trump's foreign policy moves of the past year, joining us is Rebecca Grant, Vice President of the Lexington Institute and National Security Analyst. So good afternoon to you, Dr. Grant. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll start with the most current. President Trump brokered an initial peace deal between Israel and Hamas. He's meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister today, and they're looking on to move to the next phase of the plan. What is your review of Trump's handling of the Gaza conflict?
When they announced on October 8th that Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire and the living hostages and remains would be coming out, it was amazing. And I think something only President Trump could have pulled off. Yes, he really benefited from military pressure by Israel. Of course, the B-2 strikes in Operation Midnight Hammer, crushing Iran's nuclear facilities. But it was nonetheless a masterful negotiation and the product of just intense work and refusal to give up. Okay. That said, a lot of good has now taken place in Gaza, more humanitarian aid going in, but we need to get to the next phase, a true international stabilization force, and then eventually a rebuilding of Gaza. That's taken some time, and as you can see from the meeting with Netanyahu and Trump has to kind of stay in there and keep the pressure on all the players to keep the Gaza plan moving forward.
And just to build on that, Dr. Grant, it's not just this one, right? Far from it. President Trump has brokered multiple peace deals and ceasefires, including between Armenia and Azerbaijan, DRC, and Rwanda, Israel, and Iran. So what are your comments on this? How does this compare to past presidents' efforts?
An incredible flurry of effort. And don't forget India and Pakistan during their flare-up. And one common element here, especially with India and Pakistan, is Trump simply threatens to change the tariffs if the warring sides won't agree. And I think that and his personal stake in all this has been really key to getting these agreements. You know, in the case of India, Pakistan, that was clearly calmed tensions. Armenia and Azerbaijan, wow, you know, we've seen how far back that conflict goes and didn't think that would maybe ever happen. Same thing with the DRC. So some tremendous achievements because Trump was willing to use both the strategic leadership of the U.S. and some of that economic power and willing to put it on the line himself and insist on getting results. So all of these are tremendous accomplishments that do make the world a safer place.
So in your view, Dr. Grant, do you think his tariff policy has played an outsized role during this administration?
Oh, absolutely. You know, he is so comfortable using the tariff weapon. I think more comfortable than a lot of us are. But we've all really learned, too, that even some of our best friends and allies had some pretty steep tariffs and that were unfair to the U.S. So he's done a good job of unmasking that and of showing that the U.S. can use economic policy leverage and get positive results. That's something that really is quite unique to Trump, and he has used it over and over again. One of the positive examples, of course, being undergirding that strong relationship with South Korea and with Japan and getting them to take their alliance, which was started under the Biden years, really to the next level as they oppose China and, of course, North Korea.
And I just want to stay on this topic of ending wars a little bit longer, Dr. Grant. Well, what do you think about Trump's efforts in regards to the Russia-Ukraine war? You know, he thought that it would be one of his easier ones, he said, but it turned out not to be so exactly? He said today, however, peace is closer than ever. What do you think?
He's still optimistic. I tell you, he is not going to stop until he gets that done. I believe he thought that coming into office back in January, he could put together an attractive package for Putin of economic incentives, sanctions relief, investment deals, things that would make Putin or any reasonable person agree to end the war. But Putin has a taste for war. He likes this war, and it is him and him alone, Putin alone, his idea of a revived imperial Russia that is keeping this madness going. So I applaud President Trump for really sticking with it. It does sound to me, especially as we are not hearing too many details about the 20-point plan, I think that says there are very intensive behind-the-scenes negotiations. His strategy is to try what worked for Gaza, that is keeping Witkoff, Kushner, Secretary Rubio, and others at the negotiating table until they pound out a deal. And I must say, President Zelensky has been quite agreeable in recent months, also really trying to get that ceasefire done.
Okay, so another big thing this year, and it's still current, the Trump administration escalating pressure on Venezuela, with a naval blockade on sanctioned oil, strikes on alleged drug boats. And, President Trump said recently in an interview on Friday with WABC Radio in New York that the U.S. knocked out a Venezuelan facility. So this could be the first land attack, actually, on a facility. Your thoughts on the president's approach to Latin America this year?
Yes, on that attack, we know that Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, had briefed a target set several weeks ago now. It sounds to me like this might have been a maritime connected, a lightering facility, something there that's supporting the loading of the drug boats. And just to stay tactical for a moment, we do have incredible, exquisite maritime surveillance, and they know exactly which boats they're hitting and why. But the big change, of course, is making the Western Hemisphere a top priority for the U.S. And the administration has carefully laid out its case that several of the Venezuelan-sponsored cartels are narco-terrorists and an imminent invasion threat. That's a pretty big change in U.S. foreign policy, but it's from that basis that President Trump is using his authority as commander-in-chief to interdict the drug boats. The oil tankers, some of those have been on the sanctions list for a pretty long time, and some of them have a very, very bad history of running oil for Venezuela and for others. And of course, who buys it? That's China. So the final piece in this hemisphere is Trump wants to diminish China's influence in Central and South America so that it's the U.S. that is the leader in our own hemisphere.
Okay, Dr. Grant, I just want to end with this. There's so much that's happened on the foreign policy front, but we've seen big moves from the Trump administration on immigration as well. So some developments being the pause on all immigration applications, like requests for green cards from 19 countries, pausing asylum decisions, carrying out expansive deportation operations domestically. In your view, how have this administration's policies impacted U.S. national security on the immigration front?
It's a net positive. They need to stop and rethink some of the policies. The asylum program was never meant to expand in the way that it has. It had a very narrow focus originally. So I want to see Trump's team go in and really think about what we want to do about asylum claims and about priorities for immigration in this country. Note also, he's really dropped the crossings at the southern border and all encounters nationwide. So I'd say he gets an A on immigration policy, and we'll see what his new set of rules look like in 2026.
Yep, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Dr. Grant. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Storms are affecting tens of millions of people. Many post-holiday travelers are facing weather delays and dangers. Shen Yun Performing Arts began its U.S. tour over the weekend. A Houston City Council member presented Shen Yun with a certificate of recognition. More news after this break.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL. a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy one bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy one, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get 2 free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
One person is dead and another critically injured after 2 helicopters crashed mid-air in southern New Jersey yesterday. Only the pilots were on board each aircraft. And video from the scene shows a helicopter spinning rapidly to the ground. Police and fire crews extinguished flames that engulfed one of the helicopters. The mid-air crash happened over Hamilton Municipal Airport. The owner of a cafe near the crash site said the pilots were regulars at the restaurant and would often have breakfast together. He said he and other customers watched the helicopters take off before one began spiraling downward, followed by the other. The Hamilton police chief said the FAA and National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating the crash. Meteorologists say a cold front that's sweeping east across the country is clashing with unseasonably warm air. The result is a string of brutal winter storms. Today, they're pummeling much of the northeastern quadrant of the U.S. Here's a closer look at how the weather is impacting travel.
This is kind of the last hurrah for folks that haven't left already to return home.
Many post-holiday travelers face weather delays and dangers today. Storms spawning along a cold front are affecting tens of millions of people. Much of the Northeast is dealing with severe snow and ice storms.
The ice is our main concern. I know temps are supposed to warm up. Ground temps are still cold.
In the Midwest today, forecasters warn blizzards are the concern. They say snow could meet winds up to 60 miles per hour in some areas. The FAA says Chicago O'Hare Airport had a ground stop yesterday. Oh, shoot! Utilities report more than 100,000 recent power outages in the region. In Iowa,
14-vehicle crash just ahead of my vehicle that's being cleaned up now. Zero visibility.
Some communities, like this one in Illinois, are recovering from tornado damage. Meanwhile, FlightAware reports about 10,000 U.S. flight delays and 800 cancellations yesterday. That follows another rough day for some passengers Saturday.
I just want to make it home to my own bed tonight.
Going with the flow, wherever the wind takes me.
In places across the country, the upside of the winter weather is the joy it's bringing children on holiday breaks.
We're trying to find a good area to do a snowball fight.
Silver prices soared to a record high of $83 per ounce today before settling back to just below $72. The jump marked a 175% increase since the start of the year. In addition to silver, gold prices have risen by more than 66% with a record high of $4,500 per ounce. That's up from just over $2,600 at the beginning of the year. Today, gold hovered at around $4,300 an ounce. Platinum was at $2,100, marking a 137% increase this year. Shen Yun Performing Arts has begun performances in the U.S. with shows over the weekend, including cities in California, Connecticut, and Texas. A Houston City Council member was at Shen Yun's opening performance over the weekend and presented Shen Yun with a certificate of recognition. Let's take a look at some of the audience reactions, which NTD has been covering since 2006 as a media sponsor of Shen Yun Performing Arts.
Shen Yun Performing Arts gave their first performance in Houston, Texas on December 26 at the Jones Hall for the Performing Arts. Houston City Council member Edward Pollard was among the audience members and was there to present Shen Yun with a certificate of recognition. He congratulated them on their 20th anniversary as they embark on their 2026 world tour.
It was an incredible performance for Shen Yun to be back in Houston for the 18th year and the 20th year that the performance has been going on around our country. It's a blessing to have it back in Houston, and the performers did an excellent job.
Well, I thought it was a fabulous show, very talented performers dancing with passion and excitement, showing the true richness of China and its heritage.
Shen Yun is based in New York, where it was founded in 2006. Their mission is to revive 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture through classical Chinese dance and music from before communism. Audience members gave their impression of Shen Yun's orchestra, which consists of both classical Western and Eastern instruments.
The orchestra was great. I mean, all of the different sounds and the music that they were able to provide while the dancers were performing went perfect. But a big shout out goes to the MCs as well. They really explained what we were watching, the importance and historical history of each dance, and I thought it was just excellent all around.
The music is great. I really enjoy the mix of the Western orchestra as well as the traditional Chinese instruments, so that's really very interesting, very unique for me.
Theatergoers also commented on the spiritual themes present throughout the performance.
It was more than just dancing. It was about us as human beings having traditional values, making sure that we understand our greater purpose, and the dancers really reflected that.
It resonates with sort of our Christian tradition in the United States and the rest of the world, where the power and goodness comes from God and not from the government. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why this isn't shown in China.
Their emotions definitely impact me. I can feel it. Even though wherever our seats are, it just reflects their emotions. I can feel every single one of them and their movements, even though wherever we are, it's very smooth too. It's very elegant. I love it.
Shen Yun will be performing in Houston until December 30th. NTD News, Houston, Texas.
The Trump administration is tightening the net around Venezuela's oil exports. Why Trump is taking the fight to Venezuela's doorstep. More news after this.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so, yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Another military strike against Venezuelan drug traffickers. President Trump says the U.S. took out a major facility in the South American country. Here he is speaking to WABC Radio on Friday.
We just talked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant, a big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard. But drugs are down over 97%. Can you believe it?
The president didn't provide details about the strike. The Trump administration has been targeting drug boats in international waters. But this would mark the first time the U.S. military has struck a land target in Venezuela. Trump added during the interview that the Venezuelan regime sent millions of people from their jails to America. The Trump administration is tightening the net around Venezuela's oil exports. Joining us to discuss his new article for the Epoch Times is Kevin Stocklin, journalist and contributor to the Epoch Times. Okay, Kevin, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you again. So in your article titled, Why Trump is Taking the Fight to Venezuela's Doorstep, you noted that the Trump administration said Venezuela stole American property. So we can start there. Maybe you can speak to us about what kind of property and the amount that Venezuela took.
Hi, Don. Nice to see you. So typically when a huge reserve is discovered, whether it's in Venezuela or the Middle East, very often countries will contract with Western oil companies to come in and develop bring the technology, develop the drilling equipment, extracting, processing, etc. And so that was certainly the case in Venezuela going back about a century. And oil majors are saying that the value of what they've brought in terms of equipment and technology and capital expenditures is about $60 billion.
So what has been the impact of that on the U.S. Based on what you just talked about?
Well, on the one hand, Venezuela had been the largest importer of oil into the United States, and they were producing about 20% of what the U.S. imported. And to a very large extent, the refineries that were built, particularly along the Gulf Coast, were designed to handle the kind of heavy, sour crude that comes out of places like Venezuela. On the other hand, since 2007, when Venezuela nationalized the U.S. Property, we have developed fracking and become the largest producer of oil. However, the refineries are still largely built to be most efficient processing the kind of oil that's coming out of places like Venezuela.
That Venezuela's governing regime is illegitimate. So talk to us about that. What happened during Venezuela's 2024 presidential election and onwards?
Yeah, well, the communists have been running Venezuela for decades and have really driven the economy into the ground. And they had an election in 2024. All observers believed and reported that the opposition, gentleman Edmundo Gonzalez, had won the election over the current president, Nicolas Maduro. However, Maduro refused to cede power and used the security police that he controls to keep the presidency. And so for this reason, the Trump administration and many other world leaders and observers are saying that his presidency is not legitimate.
So, Kevin, in your article, you highlight that Venezuela is estimated to hold the world's largest oil reserves. What is the significance of that?
Yeah, so that amounts to about 300 billion barrels. It is the largest known reserve of oil, larger than Saudi Arabia, larger than any Middle Eastern country, and about 7 times the reserves of the United States. So Trump very much has a strategy of increasing energy production, particularly in the United States. And this opening up these oil reserves would allow not only the addition of that to production in the region, but also to allow it to go through U.S. refineries, which process this kind of oil much more efficiently than the light crude that comes out of fracking.
And you noted, Kevin, that Venezuela is a country wrecked by socialism. What does that look like for the average Venezuelan? How do they get there?
Yeah, so Venezuela, used to be the richest country in South America and in the top 20 richest countries in the world. Since being taken over by socialism under Hugo Chavez, they have seen their GDP decline by about 75% between 2014 and 2021. They now see about 70% of the country living in poverty. They've had millions of people flee the country as refugees. Hyperinflation is the norm, and many in the country are actually suffering from starvation as well.
And can we talk about China for a moment as well? What role does China play in this situation? How dependent is Venezuela on China?
Absolutely. Well, China currently takes about 80% of the oil exports from Venezuela. So Venezuela is under embargo from the United States. China is obviously violating that embargo. So about 80% of the oil coming out of Venezuela is now going to China. And China is very unhappy with the embargo that the United States has placed on Venezuela for obvious reasons. They have gone so far to say that Venezuela could be the next Vietnam for the United States.
Okay, just final question. What does the U.S. endgame look like for Venezuela?
Well, what Trump seems to be doing, obviously, he's very interested in increasing energy production, but seems to also be reestablishing what's called the Monroe Doctrine. And this was a doctrine that has existed for more than a century in the United States, and it basically establishes that North and South America are key zones of influence for the United States. Initially, it was to keep Europe out of there, but more recently, it appears that China has taken a very strong interest in the region as well. So I think Trump, on the one hand, would certainly like to get the U.S. oil majors repaid their investments that were seized by Venezuela without any compensation. But I think the big picture is not only increasing energy production, but also establishing U.S. sovereignty over the region.
Okay, Kevin, good to talk to you today, and Happy New Year.
Same to you, Don. Thank you.
President Trump says tariffs are creating great wealth and unprecedented national security for the United States. In a social media post on Saturday, he said that the trade deficit has been cut by 60% and mentioned third quarter GDP growth of 4.3%. Trump said the U.S. is respected as a country again. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley breaks down what's at play.
Tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs.
President Trump has taken an aggressive approach to tariffs over the past year. And whether you're for or against them, they've created a major change in the global economy. Critics have argued that tariffs on goods fall onto the consumer, but it's not immediately clear that prices on certain tariffed goods have gone up. And the latest Bureau of Labor Statistics report on the annual inflation rate shows that it dropped from 3% to 2.7% last month. Now, President Trump has many reasons behind these tariffs, and one of the main ones is to rebalance unfair trade practices with other countries that have been putting up trade barriers against the U.S. for years, and also to encourage domestic manufacturing. Trump said that these tariffs have already been encouraging trillions of dollars in U.S. investment.
Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail. Totally failed. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months.
In that year-end address, President Trump said to the nation that he's sending $1,776 bonus checks to 1.45 million military members. Trump says that the income made from tariffs made it possible.
And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes.
Now, President Trump also said that he used the threat of tariffs to end certain wars, such as between India and Pakistan, Cambodia and Thailand, and between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, just to name a few. Trump has also used tariffs as part of a separate negotiation with other countries on a range of issues, including on illegal immigration and drug trafficking. He lowered tariffs on China by 10%, for instance, all in exchange for curbing fentanyl precursor chemicals to the U.S. He also placed tariffs on Mexico and Canada to stem the flow of fentanyl, other drugs, and also illegal immigration to the U.S. Now, on the domestic front, Trump said that tariffs could be used to potentially lower or eliminate federal income taxes, pay off the national debt, and send dividend payments worth $2,000 to low and middle income families next year. The Supreme Court is hearing a case on whether to uphold or reject Trump's tariffs under an emergency law. If it's rejected, it could result in the U.S. having to refund all of the collected tariff money, which now amounts to hundreds of billions of dollars. And Trump has called this case the biggest threat to U.S. national security and could render the nation financially defenseless. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
It's been nearly 40 years since the world watched in fear as disaster struck at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But with the Russia-Ukraine war raging on, the protection of the infamous nuclear facility remains as vital as ever. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports.
Reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in present-day Ukraine exploded on April 26, 1986. The blast caused a radioactive fallout, which spewed into the atmosphere. Dozens of people were killed in the immediate aftermath of the disaster, while the long-term death toll from radiation poisoning is believed to number in the thousands. Following the incident, so-called liquidators traveled to Chernobyl from all over the Soviet Union to try to eliminate the consequences and get the plant up and running again.
A few months after the accident, the other reactors were started up again once they'd been cleaned up and checked for safety, and then additional safety measures were put in place to prevent, hopefully, another Chernobyl.
Those reactors were gradually shut down over the next 14 years after the accident. The final one to shut down was Unit 3 in the year 2000, which is the one next door to the one that exploded. To keep the plant operational, the damaged reactor was sealed off, and a huge steel and concrete enclosure, which became known as the sarcophagus, was constructed between June to late November 1986. The plant remained operational during the fall of the Soviet Union and Ukraine gaining independence in 1991.
So, of course, this was at times where, it coincided, the Chernobyl incident, roughly with the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine as a new country. People needed electricity to maintain the grid, to maintain stability effectively. So it was all important to keep the lights on at this sort of time of political turbulence and change.
However, in October 1991, reactor number 2 became damaged beyond repair after a fire and was taken out of operation. Reactor number 1 was decommissioned in November 1996. But it wasn't until April 25, 2000, that then Ukrainian Prime Minister Viktor Yushchenko confirmed the site would shut. On December 15, 2000, the final reactor number 3 was turned off, shutting down the whole site.
Ukraine was very strongly encouraged by the US and Western Europe to shut the remaining reactors at Chernobyl down, and they were given aid in the form of help to rebuild or make the structure over the damaged reactor stronger.
Between 2010 and 2016, the new safe confinement, a nearly 350 feet high and 850 feet wide metal structure, was built to cover and protect the concrete sarcophagus. However, since the start of the Russian-Ukraine conflict, fighting around nuclear power plants has repeatedly raised fears of a nuclear catastrophe during the 3 years of war. The site was occupied by Russian forces for 35 days, and on February 14th this year, a drone armed with a warhead hit the protective outer shell of the plant,
which punctured a hole in it and started a small fire in the new safe confinement building, but fortunately didn't and probably wasn't designed to get through the original giant concrete structure over the reactor, so it didn't cause a release of radiation or radioactivity.
Kyiv blamed Russia, while the Kremlin denied it was responsible. After the strike, repair work quickly began.
So they've put some specialist workers who have sort of rappelled down the side of the new safe confinement structure to try and put a membrane over the hole. Now that physically helps to cover up the hole. It doesn't help to form a hermetic seal, but at least it stops the weather coming in through the hole.
Scott says ideally the Ukrainians need to accelerate the speed at which they're doing the decommissioning.
But of course, that's made very, very challenging by the fact that they're still, being invaded by a foreign aggressor.
With the sarcophagus still intact, the radiation risk is low. However, Scott feels it's only a matter of time before a new solution for the sarcophagus is needed.
The radioactivity will cause the sarcophagus to continue to degrade, and it is a structure that is really very old now, and just like any old building, it will continue to fall apart until either someone takes it down or it falls down.
On December 5th, the International Atomic Energy Agency released a statement saying that the new safe confinement has lost its primary safety functions, including the confinement capability as a result of the drone strike. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A South Korean e-commerce company will be paying its users for a massive data breach. Coupang has announced more than $1 billion in compensation. Find out more after this break.
Shop Mathis Home and save during the annual clearance event for huge discounts on all the latest styles. Here's a great value. This sofa from Ashley is a bestseller. It's just $4.99 and comes with 2 accent pillows. Upgrade to Motion with this sofa that has plush pillow top arms and 2 recliners built in. Clearance priced at just $7.99. They're in stock now with fast free delivery. For the best value, come to the annual clearance event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
The price tag on a data leak for a South Korean e-commerce company is about $1.2 billion. Coupang announced that its nearly 34 million account holders will get company vouchers after a massive data leak. Coupang founder Kim Bom issued a public apology for last month's breach that sparked backlash from its users and lawmakers. Now there's mounting criticism over Coupang providing its compensation to users with vouchers that can only be used on its own services and platforms. South Korea's parliament will hold 2 days of hearings to discuss Coupang starting tomorrow. The New York City subway will be ending the era of its Metro card in January after almost 3 decades of swiping into subway stations. The Metropolitan Transit Authority will no longer sell Metro cards, but they will still be accepting them for now. One Metro New York, or OMNY, will replace the Metro cards as go-to contactless payment system. First introduced in 2019, the MTA says more than 90% of subway and bus trips are now paid with the tap-and-go system. Riders will also be able to purchase a reloadable Omni card for $1, similar to the existing Metro card. The MTA says the change will save at least $20 million annually. And to honor the end of the Metro card era, the New York City Transit Museum is hosting a farewell exhibit showcasing its decades of service. NTD's Sean Marshall paid a visit to the museum to find out more.
The New York transit system at one time used coins as payment, then decided to upgrade to a magnetic strip card in the mid-90s. But it's going away at the end of the year and being replaced by a card that can be tapped more easily like a credit card with a chip. And the New York Transit Museum has curated a memorial farewell exhibit honoring the life of the Metro card. If you've ever tried to use the old Metro card, you would have noticed right away that there is a trick to it. You have to swipe it at just the right speed or you won't be riding on the subway or bus.
The funny thing about MetroCard is that the authority not only introduced this as a new fare medium to replace the token, but had to teach millions of New Yorkers how to use it. And some New Yorkers still are getting the hang of it.
The MTA has managed to make some of their cards have more perceived value by making hard-to-get limited editions that now sell for big bucks on eBay.
And we have an extensive collection of cards here at the New York Transit Museum, so it was a little bit difficult to pick such a small amount, but we've got the first wrappers on a Metro card, which is Gangstar in 1998. We also have a bunch of other wrappers because they've featured in Metro cards for a long time, and hip-hop was formed in New York, in the Bronx, so why not celebrate that through Metro card? The first TV show advertised on a Metro card was Spin City in 1997, and that one is over there. The first athletes on a Metro card were the New York Rangers in 1994. We've got the first Subway Series Metro card, which is in 1997. And then there's the Subway Series World Series from 2000. So there's so many things happen in New York City that are worthy of celebration, and a fair amount of those were celebrated on the backs of Metro cards.
There is one marketing idea that never quite made it, the infamous Cardvark.
So one of the things that's very prominent in our exhibit is the Cardvark. When the MTA and New York City Transit Authority were figuring out how to market the Metro card and encourage New Yorkers to use it because it existed alongside of tokens, they thought of a whole bunch of different marketing ideas to try to encourage people to use it, and one of them was Cardvark.
And while there, don't forget to check out the popular gift shop with its unique Metro-related items. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
New York City's Times Square is preparing for its annual New Year's Eve celebration. The organizers behind the event tested confetti today ahead of this year's ball drop. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on what people had to say ahead of the countdown to 2026.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
In just 2 days, visitors from across the country and the world will gather in Times Square. Together, they'll count down the seconds until midnight and help ring in the new year. Today, the event's organizers held a rehearsal. Visitors and locals alike had more to say about the practice run and what lies ahead in 2026.
It feels great. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, so it's fun to just, be a tourist in my own city sometimes. So I had a good time.
I just felt excited for the new year. It made it real. Just getting through 2025 and just embracing 2026.
I feel great going into 2026. I just turned 26 today, so I'm really looking forward to the new year. I'm very excited.
3, 2, 1.
More than 3,000 pounds of confetti will cascade among 1 million people attending the world-famous Times Square New Year's Eve ball drop, a tradition that dates back to 1907. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The CCP has deployed air, land, and sea military assets to surround Taiwan as the United States and Japan increase their support for the self-governing island. We have more news after this break.